I never expected to be the kind of woman who noticed her stepson like that. But when you're married to a man who barely looks at you anymore, when your days feel like a routine of quiet dinners and lonely nights, your mind starts to drift. He moved in after his first semester of college, said the dorms were loud and expensive, and his father, always practical, offered up our guest room without even consulting me.
I didn't object. It was just temporary.
He was polite, respectful, never called me mom, just my name, softly spoken, like he wasn't sure how to address me. I appreciated that. I didn't want to be his mother. He spent most of his time in his room. Gym in the mornings, classes online, headphones in. I'd catch glimpses, coming down the stairs shirtless, sweat on his skin, towel slung over his shoulder. I'd look away before I stared too long. Told myself it was nothing. Harmless. Curiosity. My husband didn't notice.
Or didn't care.
He was either in meetings or traveling for work. Even when he was home, he wasn't present. We barely touched anymore. When I tried, he brushed me off like I was being needy.
So I stopped trying.
And started noticing everything else. One night, I passed by my stepson's room, laundry in hand. His door was cracked. He was on a video call with someone, laughing, shirtless. The girl on the screen giggled, then made a face.
It's too much, she said.
It's like, scary. He looked embarrassed, turned the laptop, and muttered something I couldn't hear. I froze. I shouldn't have been listening, but I did. He said, "It's not my fault. It's just how I am." Then he sighed. No one ever stays. I walked away quickly, heart racing. I shouldn't have heard that. Shouldn't have cared. But I did. After that, I started noticing more. The way he avoided certain conversations. The way he never brought girls over. The way he carried himself, confident, but with a quiet heaviness. I told myself it wasn't my business. I was his stepmother, not his therapist. But I couldn't ignore the way I felt drawn to him. Not just physically, but emotionally. One afternoon, I was putting away towels. I didn't hear the shower running. I assumed he was out. I opened the bathroom door. He was there. He didn't see me at first. He was turned away, steam curling around him. And then he turned. His eyes locked on mine. Neither of us moved. It was only a second. Maybe less. But I saw everything. I muttered an apology and shut the door, heart pounding in my chest. I dropped the towels. My hands were shaking. I couldn't unsee it. I avoided him after that. Couldn't look him in the eye. Couldn't speak without hearing that girl's voice in my head. It's too much. I kept replaying it, wondering what it felt like to be wanted and rejected for something you couldn't control. At night, I lay in bed next to a man who hadn't touched me in weeks. My husband snored, his back turned to me, like always. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of a body that wasn't his. Thinking of the way my stepson's eyes widened when he saw me.
Not with shame.
Not with anger. With something else. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. Said good morning. Made coffee. Sat at the table with his usual silence. I couldn't eat. Couldn't breathe. I needed air. I needed to forget. But I couldn't. It wasn't just what I saw, it was how it made me feel. Wanted. I was folding his laundry when I found a note in his pocket. Torn piece of notebook paper. Too big for me, it read. No name. Just those 5 words. I stood there holding it like it had weight, like it meant something. Maybe it did. I kept thinking about how young he was, but also how grown, how lost, how lonely, and how similar we were in ways that made me uncomfortable.
He knocked on my door later that day.
Asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. He looked like he wanted to say more. Maybe he knew I wasn't just tired. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, sat on the couch, and tried to distract myself. He walked in, hoodie on, hair damp. Asked if he could watch something with me. I nodded, too tired to argue. We watched in silence. Something dumb on Netflix. His arm brushed mine. Just once. But it lingered. My skin burned under his touch. He didn't move away. Neither did I. We didn't speak. We didn't look at each other. But the room felt charged, like we were both pretending not to feel it. Later, I went to the kitchen for water. He was behind me.
Close.
Sorry, he said softly. About earlier. I didn't answer. I didn't mean for you to see.
I know, I said.
I'm not trying anything, he added. I don't want things to be weird. They're already weird, I replied. He gave a soft laugh.
Yeah.
I guess they are. I turned to look at him, really look at him, and for a moment I forgot everything, the titles, the roles, the rules. All I saw was a young man trying not to fall apart, and maybe a reflection of myself in him. I stepped away quickly, told him good night, locked my bedroom door. I didn't sleep, because no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment, about how wrong it was, and how badly I wanted it again. I stopped trying to pretend. There was no one thinking it, no one seeing what I'd seen, no one doing the shift that had already happened. I started noticing every little thing. How he never sat too close but never too far. How he looked at me a little longer than he should. How I stopped correcting him for it. I tried to avoid being alone with him, but my husband made it easier by barely being home. He left for a 3-day conference. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. The silence in the house was heavier without him, but not emptier. The next morning, I found myself wearing makeup. Just a little. Just enough. I didn't even realize I'd done it until I caught my reflection and paused. I told myself it wasn't for him. But no one else was home. When I walked into the kitchen, he looked up, eyes scanning me a second too long. Said nothing. Just a small smile. It sat in my chest like a secret. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I heard the low hum of the TV. I went to get a glass of water. He was on the couch, blanket over his lap, remote in hand, eyes locked on the screen. I didn't know what he was watching. I just knew the air changed when I walked in. He turned it off, looked up at me. Can't sleep? I nodded. You? Same. I leaned against the counter. Does it always bother you? The thing? He knew what I meant. Yeah, he said. Most people think it's a blessing. But it's not. I didn't speak. It's just, he hesitated. It's hard to be close to someone when they think you're some kind of freak. Or when they only want you for one thing. It messes with your head. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. You don't have to be. I do, I replied. Because you deserve more than that. His eyes flicked up to mine. Thanks. I almost left. I should have. But I sat on the edge of the couch instead. Not too close. Not yet. I don't talk to anyone about this stuff, he said. Especially not my dad. I won't tell him, I said quickly. He gave a small laugh. I know. He wouldn't care anyway. He doesn't really listen. I know how that feels. There was silence after that. But it wasn't empty. It was loud in all the ways words failed. I see how he treats you, he said quietly. You don't deserve that. I swallowed hard. Marriage isn't what I thought it would be. Do you still love him? I looked down at my hands. I don't know what that word means anymore. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. Because in that moment, we weren't stepmother and stepson. We were just two people who felt invisible. I used to think I was broken, he said. Like I was too much. Physically. Emotionally. All of it. You're not broken, I said. You're just too real for the wrong people. He stared at me. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not lust. Not confusion. Just hunger for something he didn't know how to name. I stood up, heart pounding. I told him goodnight, but my feet were heavy. His eyes followed me to the door. I could feel the burn of them on my back. I wanted him to stop me. I also wanted him to stay quiet. The next day, he was distant. I think we both felt the pull, and we were afraid of what came next. I cleaned the house for no reason. Baked a cake I didn't want to eat. Checked my phone every hour, hoping for a text that never came. From either of them. Around dinner, he asked if I wanted to eat together. I nodded. We sat across from each other, sharing stories about nothing. I laughed more in that hour than I had in weeks. He said he liked it when I laughed. I said I didn't remember the last time I really meant it. Later, we washed dishes together. His hand brushed mine. Neither of us moved away. My breath caught. His eyes flicked to mine, then down to my lips. I think about you, he said, voice low. More than I should. I couldn't speak. I don't know if that's messed up. It is, I whispered. But I do too. He stepped closer. I didn't stop him. His hand came to rest gently on my waist. No rush. No pressure. Just a quiet, intentional closeness that made my skin buzz.
We can't, I said.
I know. But neither of us moved. Do you ever wonder why no one sees you? He asked. How someone could live with you and not realize what they have. All the air left my lungs. I was tired of pretending I didn't want to be seen. The tension was unbearable. I stepped back, just enough to breathe. He didn't push. He just nodded like he understood, and I went to bed. But I didn't sleep. The next day, my husband called, asked how things were. I lied. Said everything was fine. He said he'd be home late Sunday night. I said okay. I hung up and stood by the window. My stepson walked past outside, shirt off, mowing the lawn. I hated myself for watching. I hated myself more for not looking away. That night, I wore the silk robe I hadn't touched in years. No makeup, just lip balm. He was on the couch again. I sat beside him. He looked at me like he was trying to read my thoughts. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. You don't have to know, he said. You just have to feel it. That's the problem. I do. He leaned in. Barely an inch. Just close enough that I could feel the heat of him. If you tell me to stop, he whispered, I will. I didn't say anything. And I didn't stop him when his fingers brushed mine. My heart was racing. Every breath felt louder than it should have. His hand slid against my thigh, slow and careful. My body betrayed my mind. Every warning bell faded into white noise. I leaned into him, without meaning to. Our lips almost met, then paused. Hovered. Shared breath. I don't want to hurt you, he said. You won't. I told myself I was strong enough to walk away.
But I didn't want to. He didn't kiss me that night.
Not fully. Just a brush of breath, and almost. I went to bed trembling with the weight of it. Every nerve lit up, every inch of skin still burning from how close we came. I thought distance would bring clarity, but the next morning I was worse. On edge.
Starved.
My husband texted to say his flight was delayed. Another 24 hours. I stared at the message, then deleted it. I didn't reply. I didn't care. The man I once waited up for didn't exist anymore. My stepson stayed in his room all morning. I passed his door more times than necessary. Told myself it was coincidence. Lied to myself better than I lied to anyone else. When he finally came out, we barely spoke. The silence was thick but not cold. He brushed past me at the fridge, and I swore he did it on purpose. I could feel the edge of something rising in him, in me, restraint dissolving slowly, like sugar in hot water. We moved around each other all day, caught in invisible orbit, neither willing to break the gravity. At dusk, I poured wine. One glass turned into two. I made pasta. He offered to help, stood behind me too close while chopping garlic. I said nothing. Let him stay there. Dinner was quiet, comfortable, like we'd stopped pretending we were anything other than what we'd become. Two people caught in something irreversible. He cleared the dishes. I wiped the counters. Our hands met at the sink, and this time, neither of us let go. His fingers slid over mine, slow, deliberate. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I turned toward him, body answering before my mind could protest. My robe was thin, loose. I felt the air shift when he moved closer. His breath warmed the hollow of my throat. He touched my jaw like it was something fragile. His lips hovered. My body leaned forward without asking. I kissed him. It wasn't innocent. It wasn't hesitant. It was the kind of kiss you give after months of silence, after too many looks and not enough touch. It was desperate, hungry, wrong, and I didn't stop. His hands moved to my waist. Mine slid under his shirt, tracing the line of his spine. I felt the tension in him, the held-back urgency, the restraint slowly unraveling. I welcomed it.
We didn't speak.
We didn't make promises. We just gave in. The couch held us. His weight on me wasn't heavy. It felt like gravity. My robe slipped from my shoulder. His mouth found my collarbone. I didn't push him away. I pulled him in. Everything I thought I knew about myself fractured in those minutes. I forgot the house, the rules, the man I'd married. I only remembered how this felt, how alive I was in his hands. He paused just once, looked at me like he was searching for permission. "You don't have to stop," I whispered. And he didn't. The world faded to sound, his breathing, my heartbeat, the rush of blood and pulse and skin. Nothing else existed. After, we sat in silence. Not awkward. Not regretful. Just full. He looked at me like I was a secret he never thought he'd get to keep. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything at all.
He reached for my hand.
Held it quietly,
like it meant something.
Later, when I went to bed, I half expected to feel guilt. I didn't. I felt calm. Still. Like I had finally stepped into something that had been waiting for me. The next morning, everything was different, even if nothing had changed. He was gentler with his words. I was quieter with mine. Our eyes met and held. There was no shame. Not yet. But there was danger. And I felt it when my husband texted, landing in 2 hours. Reality returned like a slap. I pulled away from the warmth. Closed off. Told myself it had to stop. He noticed. Asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. He didn't believe me, but he didn't push. When my husband walked in later that evening, he kissed my cheek and dropped his suitcase by the door. Asked about the trip. Said the weather was decent.
He didn't look at me.
Didn't notice the tension in the room. He never saw anything he didn't want to. We ate dinner like strangers. My stepson stayed in his room. I answered questions with nods and practiced smiles. I pretended everything was fine. Later that night, my husband reached for me in bed. A hand on my hip. Dry, indifferent. I froze. Pulled away under the excuse of sleep. "You all right?" he asked, voice dull. "Just tired," I said again. He didn't press. He never did. The next day passed slowly. I kept my distance. My stepson avoided me too. I think we were both afraid of what came next, whether it would break us, whether it already had. I found myself watching him from the hallway, the way he walked, the way he looked when he thought no one was watching. He wasn't just a boy with a problem anymore.
He was someone who saw me.
And I'd let him in. He finally spoke that evening, just as I was cleaning up. "I know you're scared." "I'm not." "You are," he said softly. "But I get it." "This can't happen again," I told him. "Why not?" "Because it's wrong." So was being ignored for years. So was being invisible. "I'm married." He stepped closer. "To someone who doesn't love you." I didn't answer. He exhaled, frustrated but soft. "What we did, maybe it was a mistake. But I don't regret it." I turned to face him. "You should." "Do you?" I couldn't lie. "No," I said. "And that's the problem." He nodded like he understood. "So what now?" "I don't know." He stepped back. "Tell me when you do." That night, I lay awake thinking of every choice that led me here. Every ignored instinct. Every glance I didn't stop. I tried to picture life going back to what it was, and I couldn't. I heard a soft knock around midnight. My door stayed closed. I didn't answer.
But I wanted to.
I cried quietly. Not out of regret. Out of grief. I had broken something that couldn't be unbroken. And I wasn't sorry for it. I was just terrified of what came next. Days passed without a word between us. He kept to his room. I kept to mine. The air in the house was too still, too aware. My husband noticed none of it. He went to work, watched TV, scrolled through his phone at dinner. I started to feel like furniture again. But I wasn't the same. I couldn't unfeel what I'd felt. I couldn't erase the memory of being touched like I mattered. I'd tasted something that made everything else bland. I tried to function. I cleaned, I cooked, I answered meaningless questions with practiced ease. But inside, I was breaking apart. The silence between me and my stepson didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like waiting. Like something was circling us, patient, inevitable. I thought distance would fix what we did. Instead, it just magnified the emptiness we returned to. One night, I caught my husband texting someone after midnight. I asked who it was. He said a coworker. His voice didn't even have the effort of a lie. I nodded. Didn't ask again. There was no point. The next morning, I found a red thong under the passenger seat of his car when I went to grab my charger. I hadn't worn anything like that in years. I stared at it, holding it between two fingers like a piece of evidence. Then I dropped it back where I found it and said nothing. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't hurt. I was numb. The kind of numb that comes after so many small betrayals. You stop keeping score. I've been loyal to someone who never even noticed the effort. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the way my stepson looked at me when he said he didn't regret it. That was more honesty than I'd ever had in my marriage. I walked past his room.
Paused.
He looked up when I knocked.
He didn't speak.
He didn't need to. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me. I know I told you it was wrong, I said. His eyes didn't leave mine. But I don't care anymore. He moved toward me slowly, like he wasn't sure I meant it. I'm not asking for promises, I said. I just don't want to feel alone anymore. That was all it took. We fell into each other like we'd never been apart. It wasn't about lust, it was about recognition. Like two people clinging to the only truth they had left. We didn't talk after. We just lay there breathing. I felt more seen in that silence than I ever had in years of marriage. He brushed hair from my face. I closed my eyes and let myself be held. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, he made me coffee. My husband left early, no goodbye. The house was peaceful in a way it had never been before. For a moment, it felt like a life we could have. Quiet, warm, ours. But reality always catches up. My husband came home early 2 days later. Angry. Accused me of going through his phone. Even though I hadn't. Said I was acting distant. I wanted to laugh at the irony. He didn't care until he thought he might lose control. He shouted. I didn't. I just listened. And then I walked out of the room. That night, my stepson sent me a single text, "You okay?" I replied, "No. But I will be." The shift was slow but steady. I stopped pretending. I stopped smiling when I didn't mean it. My husband grew more distant, and I stopped chasing him. I didn't lie anymore. I just existed without apology. One night, my stepson told me he was moving out. Said he'd found a job in another city. I froze. Are you running away? I asked.
No, he said.
I just need to find out who I am when I'm not in this house. I understood. I hated that I did. I wish things were different, I said. Me too. He paused before adding, but I don't regret any of it. Neither do I. We didn't sleep together again. We didn't need to. What we shared went beyond physical. It changed me. The morning he left, we didn't say goodbye. He just looked at me one last time. That look said everything. Gratitude.
Sadness. Love, maybe.
I watched him drive away, without crying. I went inside, poured myself coffee, sat by the window. My husband didn't ask where he went. Didn't seem to care. He left for work an hour later. I packed a bag after he did. I didn't leave a note. I just walked away. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. Weeks later, I got a message. I hope you're okay.
You deserve to be.
It was from him. I replied, I'm getting there. And I was. Not because of what we did, but because for the first time, I knew I wasn't invisible. And I was never going to be again.